What's up everyone, this is JG and today I'm covering SilverAsh Alter. He has a complicated kit and I'll do a deep dive on his mechanics later. Today I'm just covering that critical question, should you roll for him? Let me break down the top arguments for and against SilverAsh. Let's start with the negatives. First off, his kit is just plain complicated. Honestly, I went back and forth on my evaluation of him because I kept noticing different details of his kit that impacted my assessment. There are tons of things to keep track of in his kit, and it will definitely take some practice to use him well. If you haven't studied his kit and spent some time thinking about which skill to bring to a particular stage, you might find that he doesn't quite help in the way that you're used to a Vanguard helping you. Second, cost reduction is not as good as DP generation. All three of his skills can reduce the DP cost of an operator to help you get them on the board faster. It's easy to just count this as DP generation, but they're not the same. DP can be used to deploy any operator, but cost reduction only applies to the operator it affects. It's the difference between giving someone cash versus giving them a coupon. Whether the coupon is valuable depends a lot on how you wanted to spend the cash. Third, his S3 does two things at once where you might sometimes prefer that it only did one. It's his best combat skill by far, with amazing offensive utility plus decent DP generation. But its secondary effect is that it swaps the DP cost of your most expensive operator with your cheapest one. That's good news for one operator, but bad news for another one. For cheap units, their cheapness is a core part of their value proposition. A Vanguard or Executor that costs 30 DP is not very helpful. SilverAsh basically ruins one unit to make a different unit better, and this is a non-optional sacrifice you have to make to get his best DPS. This leads to my final point. You kind of have to build your whole team around him and what he does. You probably want to bring a super cheap unit like a robot to fuel his DP swap, so you can sort of think of him as consuming 2 team slots. In expert level content where it's worth spending a long time thinking about your team, the benefits might be worth it. But it might be kind of tiring to use him in normal levels and have to constantly work around his idiosyncrasies. He can bring a lot of power, but he doesn't bring a lot of flexibility. That's a pretty big list of cons. Let me try to change personalities here and give you the other side of the argument. First up, his core stats are great. He has decent offensive stats and great defensive stats. Including his talent, he has as much defense as Gummy. I don't have anyone in my box with more defense that isn't a defender. Plus, he brings auto-regen for himself and any other Snow Realm units you decided to bring along. That's in addition to block 2, which is a must for an early lane holder. He's a terrific, tanky lane holder for at least the first few minutes of a map. Second, his kit is full of little perks. He can remove invisibility, he's immune to freeze, and he can inflict cold or fragile. He does a lot of small things that can give you a reason to bring him to a certain level with a specific mechanic you need to counter. But here's the big one. In the cons section, I said that he requires that you build your whole team around him. If you do build your whole team around him, what can he get done? The answer is quite a lot. His S2 doesn't generate DP, but if you count all of its cost reduction, it's the best DP skill in the game, outside of some agent cheese strategies. But most of the time, I think you'll want to use his S3. There are 2 ways I think you could roll with it. Strategy number 1 is to bring a 3 DP robot, or maybe 6 DP gravel, anytime you bring SilverAsh. Let's compare how SilverAsh performs compared with Myrtle over the first 30 seconds. Let's assume we start with 10 DP. Myrtle deploys immediately and runs her skill cycle at 9 seconds. By 30 seconds, you've got 40 natural DP plus 14 from Myrtle. That's 46 DP to spend on other operators. So you could deploy something like Myrtle, Opianus, and another 20 to 22 DP operator like maybe Thorns. SilverAsh deploys 3 seconds later and gets his skill 9 seconds after that. By 30 seconds, his skill has generated 18 true DP. More than Myrtle if you're counting. Plus, it has swapped the cost of Opianus to 3 DP. So with your 58 DP, you can have SilverAsh, Opianus, Thorns, and a whole extra operator like another DPS or a good medic. He's ahead by 1 full operator. Plus, instead of Myrtle cowering in a corner trying not to take any hits, you have a tanky block 2 Vanguard blasting out AoE damage for 48 seconds. He's basically 2 operators ahead in terms of the amount of combat power that's on the map, for the cost of burning 1 team slot. For levels with a quick start, that difference is absolutely insane. Strategy number 2 is to just ignore his DP swap and power through it like a big stupid burden beast. Maybe you have a cheap guard like Mountain who gets swapped with Opianus. Instead of deploying Mountain for 11 DP and Ulpianus for 24, you can deploy Ulpianus for 11 and Mountain for 24. You've got 3 units on the board, same as Myrtle, and with 10 DP to spare. And once again, you've got SilverAsh instead of Myrtle on the board, so this team's combat output is much higher. Obviously, you can get a bit more out of it if you lean into this skill instead of just treating it like a self-inflicted debuff. But SilverAsh brings so much combat power as a first deploy that he honestly reduces your demand for DP. If you've already killed everything on the map, who needs DP? The final strength I'll call out is his Fragile effect. With S3 at M3, he inflicts a 30% Fragile effect, both from his own attacks and the operator he gifts the effect to. Did I not mention that gift yet? Yeah, a second operator can trigger the damaging strikes of his S3 from their own location. You could even give that gift to SilverAsh if you want to have more SilverAsh in your SilverAsh. The skill is long and with a pretty long cooldown, 48 seconds on, then 55 seconds off. The first skill cycle happens early, at 9 to 13 seconds depending on masteries. This first cycle should usually wipe early waves quickly enough that you won't be in a hurry to deploy a medic. And did I mention he regenerates? By the second skill cycle, he's probably not your hardest hitter on the map. But at this point, the Fragile effect becomes huge. It boosts all damage against the target by 30%. At this point in the level, you may have bosses or big elites that you're trying to take down. Gift the Snowstorm to one of your nukers and watch them punch for 30% more damage. This gives you a good reason to keep your Vanguard on the map for the entire level, instead of pulling them once you can afford more expensive units. He morphs from a Vanguard in the early level into an offensive supporter later in the level. That's some pretty nice role compression, and doing 2 things at once makes the prospect of burning a team slot on a robot not seem so bad. So, overall, where do I land on SilverAsh? This has been a tough one, and I've picked about 4 different scores as I've gone through my analysis. Whether you will like him depends a lot on whether you buy into the SilverAsh meta. If you want him to be a normal Vanguard that you can just swap in for any other Vanguard, you're not gonna love him. But if you're like, hell yes, I will change my playstyle for sexy snowcats with pretentious voice acting, then he will work some magic for you. The constraints he puts on team building make him somewhat situational, and I normally cap situational units at A rank. But the more I look at it, the more I've decided that he's worthy of an S rank score. The key for me is that while his S3 can futz with DP in a way that is annoying if you haven't planned for it, he brings such amazing early level lane holding that you can just cope with that. He'll still generate DP, still regenerate, still provide DPS and offensive support. Used well, he can be S+, but used poorly, he's still like an A+. That's it for today. Let me know in the comments if you think I missed anything big. Please like and subscribe for more Arknight strategy analysis. See you next time.